Chapter 2207, Protected by Monarch Tears. Chapter 2207, Protected by Monarch Tears. Huang Yishan ignored Jiyu Yushu. He turned and looked at Ling Han again, and said, "Since you can talk so well, I will give you a chance then. Break a leg, an arm, then kneel down and beg for mercy, and I will spare you." He had added everything Ling Han had said together, which could be considered slightly original. Ling Han shook his head. Even a threat was so boring, how uninteresting. Hu Niu put down her plate, and kindly reminded him, "You can also *s rape. Pu. Instantly, a number of people spluttered. Hearing the phrase *s rape from the mouth of a woman that was exquisite as a fairy was really a blow to their outlook. Even Ling Han could only place a hand on his forehead. He had just forbidden the little girl from *s raping anyone, and it was now permanently on her mind. Meanwhile, Huang Yishan was enraged. "Are you guys ridiculing me with your banter? Do you think that I, Huang Yishan, am made of clay? You're seeking death," he declared menacingly. "Since you people are so determined to provoke me, then just prepare to suffer the consequences." "Brother Huang." Jiyu Yushu leaped out. "Please calm your anger. Anything can be discussed peacefully." He ran out to persuade Huang Yishan precisely because he thought of him as a friend. He had suffered a loss at Ling Han's hands before, and knew that this guy was practically a demon. Moreover, Ling Han was his master, and had hold of his slavery contract. Now, with someone attempting to make a move on his master, there was naturally no way he could sit by idly and watch. Huang Yishan was not aware of these twists and turns, and couldn't help but look furious as he exclaimed, "Jiyu Yushu, you have stopped me repeatedly. What is the meaning of this? I'm trying to save you here. You have absolutely no idea how terrifying this bringer of calamity can be." He did not dare to say these words. Firstly, Ling Han had not allowed him to, and secondly, he could not bring himself to expose his embarrassment in public. Thus, he could only urge, "Brother Huang, listen to me. Just let it go. Let it go." "How am I supposed to let it go? What would that make me then?" Huang Yishan smirked coldly, and said, "Could it be that if I do not listen to you, you would become my enemy?" These words were already filled with antagonism. Everyone thought that with how Huang Yishan had spoken such words, Jiyu Yushu would not continue to insist further. However, they had not foreseen that Jiyu Yushu's reaction would be so unexpected. His expression was solemn as he answered, "If Brother Huang insists, I do not mind a battle, either. Brother, you would definitely be thanking me in the future." Whether Huang Yishan would be thanking Jiyu Yushu in the future or not was a matter for the future, but now his fury was pushed to the pinnacle. Why? Why did Jiyu Yushu actually become hostile with him for the sake of a stranger? Had this guy gone nuts? "Jiyu Yushu, you have really surprised and disappointed me." Huang Yishan looked coldly at Jiyu Yushu. "I have always wanted to exchange blows with you, and see which of us is stronger." Jiyu Yushu was naturally also a proud character. Hearing Huang Yishan's words, he couldn't help but put on an air of pride, and said, "Then, let's settle it with a battle." Huang Yishan did not waste any more words. With a sudden tap of his foot, he shot into the skies, and Jiyu Yushu followed closely. Then, a dazzling brilliance exploded in the skies. The two great monarch tears were already embroiled in an intense battle. Ling Han and his group raised their heads and watched. With their vision, they naturally could see the battle clearly. As they sipped tea, they observed the great battle of monarch tears, and it was indeed an enjoyment. However, some could not bear to watch on. "Though there is no animosity between me and you guys are just too arrogant." Another monarch tear stepped out. "I don't care what insanity has captured Jiyu Yushu that he would step out on your behalf, but this is the Saintly Origin Academy, and your impudence is not allowed." Ling Han cracked a smile, and asked, "What is it? Do you want a battle as well?" "Battle? Are you even qualified?" That monarch tear smirked coldly. "I am only going to teach you a lesson so that you know what is proper and what is appropriate behavior." Ling Han gave an "oh," and answered, "Not qualified, indeed." Everyone thought that he was expressing his agreement with the words of that monarch tear, but in the next instant, they knew that they were wrong. How could someone who had so brazenly set out a table to sip tea right in front of the academy gates be so humble? You are too weak, unqualified to exchange blows with me. Ling Han nodded. That monarch Tier did not become angry, as if he already knew how Ling Han had a sharp tongue. He smirked coldly. No matter how well you talk, it cannot change your strength. I only have to move, and you will be sprawled out on the ground. Come, that. Ling Han looked towards Dan Hao. Right, what was your name again? Dan Hao couldn't help but feel gloomy. For better or worse, he was still a monarch Tier, yet he wasn't even qualified to have Ling Han remember his name. Dan Hao. He could not refuse to answer, so could only reply with a dark expression. Huh. Everyone was surprised. Why are you so obedient? It should be known that you are a monarch Tier, so what happened to your pride? Oh, Dan Hao. Ling Han nodded. I'll leave this one to you. All right. Dan Hao stepped out and walked towards that monarch Tier. Brother Peng, apologies. Fuck. Everyone could not believe it. He asked you for your name, and you immediately replied. He commanded you to fight, and you just obediently ran out. Did you go nuts? That monarch Tier's surname was Peng, with the first name being Mu. He looked at Dan Hao strangely, and asked, Brother Dan, could it be that this boy has some incredible background? Otherwise, how could he possibly command a monarch Tier? Dan Hao shook his head. Brother Peng, don't ask so many questions. Just know that harmony is to be prized. Again, harmony is to be prized. Had these monarch Tier prodigies all gone nuts today? They were all actually advocating that harmony was to be prized. Peng Mu felt that this was very abnormal. To have Jiu Yushu and Dan Hao step out for them one after another. If Ling Han did not have an outrageously powerful background, who would believe that? But monarch Tiers like them had also come from 6th Heaven Celestial King Tier sects, at least, and also had powerful backgrounds. What more now when they had enrolled into Saintly Origin Academy? Did they still need to give anyone face? What kind of secret were these 4 people hiding? Let's have a battle then. He was curious and also very angry. With a leap, he shot into the air, wanting to battle Dan Hao. Dan Hao naturally would not cower. He similarly rose into the air, and boom, the second battle soon broke out. Everyone looked at one another. Next, would there be other monarch Tiers that would step out and want to teach Ling Han a lesson? And if such monarch Tiers appeared, would there also be other monarch Tiers stepping out to stop them? All of a sudden, the atmosphere was strangely quiet. Everyone was watching the skies. For great monarch Tiers, exchanging blows was not something that could be seen all the time. Alerted by the great battle of monarch Tiers, more people appeared at the gates of the academy, and found out about how things had progressed to this point. There were also monarch Tiers among them. Oh, interesting. As expected, new monarch Tiers stepped out. I don't believe it. He did not waste any words. The moment he appeared, he rushed towards Ling Han and his group. He shot out a punch, wanting to overturn their tea table. Xiao, a figure shot out, and darted towards that monarch Tier. Ji Kwong, that monarch Tier, roared furiously. What was going on here? Were they all traitors? Would there always be someone that would step out for Ling Han and his group? Ji Kwong was one of the 10 great monarch Tiers that Ling Han had recruited. He was internally very displeased as well, but it could not be helped. Who asked him to receive a signal from Ling Han? Come fight. He couldn't be bothered to waste words, either, and shot into the skies. At this, everyone could not keep their composure any longer. Altogether, there were a total of 3 monarch Tiers that had stepped out for Ling Han and his group. Just who exactly were these 4 people? Being made of clay means that you have no temper. Chapter 2208, 5th Pinnacle. Chapter 2208, 5th Pinnacle. The identities of Ling Han and his group drew the curiosity of the masses, and also led to more monarch Tiers stepping out, wanting to force out the trump cards of Ling Han and his group. However, there was also an endless stream of monarch Tiers that stepped out for Ling Han. It couldn't be helped, he just happened to recruit 10 monarch Tiers some days ago. When these 10 people had all stepped out, Ling Han couldn't help but smile. He had gained new helpers. Yi, Yang Xianlu, Cheng Zixin, and the others were all monarch tiers that were allied with him. Without any need for Ling Han to speak up, these people took the initiative to move, helping to feed Ling Han's momentum. At first, the spectators at the gates were only curious, but as they continued watching, they became stunned. So many monarch tiers had moved out, all just for the sake of Ling Han and his group. If this power could be mobilized by Ling Han and his group, just how terrifying would that be? He could instantly become the fifth pinnacle of the academy, establishing a force that was not inferior to the forces established by Ji Wuming, Shichanzi, and the others. What was even more overwhelming was that this didn't show the true strength of Ling Han and his group yet. Who knew exactly how many monarch tiers there were under his command? However, when more and more monarch tiers were intrigued with this, the cards that belonged to Ling Han were finally all played. When the 37th monarch tier appeared, no new monarch tier came out to keep off fights for Ling Han and his group. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. It looked like there were just 36 monarch tiers under Ling Han and his group's command. But upon further thought, they were internally aghast. 36 monarch tiers, what kind of concept was this? As long as these people didn't die, they would all be capable of becoming celestial kings in the future, and their lowest achievement would be 4th heaven, at least, or even 5th heaven. What kind of terrifying power was this? In the skies, the 36 battles were all progressing heatedly, and as many as 72 monarch tiers were battling fiercely. This kind of scene was definitely a rarity. Han Lin, right? The 37th monarch tier looked at Ling Han. So long had passed, and with the means of a monarch tier, he had naturally clearly investigated the origins of Ling Han and his group. Of course, that was only limited to the information that Ling Han allowed them to find out. Care for a spar? He did not dare go too far. Though not one of Ling Han or his group had moved, they were able to mobilize 36 monarch tiers. Who dared to underestimate them? The Empress leaped out, but did not answer. She merely crooked her finger at that person, showing clearly her pride. That monarch tier couldn't help but feel angered. You are indeed beautiful, but this is the world that belongs to cultivators. Beauty is only the prize of elites. He humphed, and immediately charged towards the Empress. The Empress was incredibly aggressive. That was how her personality was, and her style of attack was the same. Boom! A great battle broke out. The two of them did not take their battle into the skies, but rather stayed on the ground. Because the Empress had not soared into the skies, the other naturally would not be going skywards all alone and put on a one-man show. Everyone soon looked shocked. Unlike the battles in the skies though, the 72 monarch tiers all had varying differences in their strength. Deciding the victory in battle was definitely not a matter that would happen quickly. The moment the Empress moved, she was overbearing. In just over a dozen moves, she was completely on the active side. After 100 moves, she had already built up an upper hand, and victory was within her grasp. This was really horrifying. They were both monarch tiers, but why was there such a huge gap between the two of them? It should be known that monarch tier meant that one could be strongest in a battle of equals. Since they were already the strongest, their abilities should be quite close to one another's. How could such an obvious disparity appear? Another 100 moves later, the Empress pushed out a palm, and Peng, that monarch tier, was sent flying, and sprawled out on the ground, unable to catch his breath for a long while. In this instant, the area was completely dead silent. Though they had predicted that the Empress would win, when they really witnessed this scene, everyone was still numb with shock. A monarch tier had lost just like that. Was there anyone left that could defeat Ling Han and his group? Could it be that there were not many that could fight in the giant Saintly Origin Academy, and these 4 people were allowed to continue blocking the gates in their arrogance? Let's get an Immortal Palace tier, someone suggested. Immortal Palace tier? Ling Han and his group were all only heaven souls. If they got an Immortal Palace tier to help, wouldn't that be just the act of a bully? But Heaven Soul monarch tiers had all lost, so frankly. Without an Immortal Palace tier, was there anyone left that could suppress these 4 people? It's too bad that Ji Wuming, Shichanzi, Hong Huang, and Jiolan have all broken through to the Immortal Palace tier. Otherwise, they would be the strongest Heaven Souls, someone mused with regret. That's right. This won everyone's agreement. Ji Wuming and the others were really too strong, completely suppressing every other monarch tier to the point that they paled in comparison. If there was a hierarchy of monarch tiers, the four of them would definitely be the pinnacle, and there was no one that could be their equal. I heard a few troublesome characters have come. A young man appeared, dressed in snow-white robes, appearing incredibly confident. Senior brother Ji. When they saw this person, everyone in the vicinity paid their respects. Ji Yutong, a disciple of the academy, and a first secret monarch tier. Though the true starting line of the race among monarch tiers was the celestial king tier, cultivation level was also a realistic comparison. He was presently a first secret elite, and that was stronger than the heaven soul, and it was not just by a bit, either there was a completely overwhelming advantage. Hence, there was a need to maintain respect. Ji Yutong walked towards Ling Han and his group. As he walked, he released his own aura. Boom, the mystical power of the immortal palace tier spread out, shaking the heavens. In the skies, all 36 battles had stopped, and the 72 monarch tiers all descended back to the ground, looking at Ji Yutong reverently. Even though they were just one step behind Ji Yutong, this one step had led to a massive gap appearing between the strength of both sides. It was a gap that could not be compensated with any amount of talent. Without entering the immortal palace tier, even the strongest heaven soul was still just a dividing soul tier. Hong, long, long, the ground trembled continuously, as if it could not bear Ji Yutong's domineering air. The Rain Emperor's eyes lit up. He stood up. Fourth brother, leave this opponent to me. All right. Ling Han nodded. He knew that the Rain Emperor had just attained dividing 9 souls, and was just wanting to test out his strength. A mere dividing soul tier, and you actually dare to oppose me? Ji Yutong demanded in disdain. What did a first secret monarch tier signify? He could have invincible battle prowess even against an opponent of third secret. Ordinarily, when 10 heaven soul monarch tiers joined forces, they could match a first secret opponent, but that was only an ordinary first secret. Against a first secret monarch tier, they would only be defeated, and the Rain Emperor was only one person at that. There was no way that he could defeat even an ordinary first secret opponent, and he still wanted to fight him? He had to be joking. The Rain Emperor stared at Ji Yutong for a while, and said, "Use your full prowess, or I will kill you." Ji Yutong was practically exploding in fury. A mere dividing soul tier actually dared demand that he use his full prowess. He could not help but laugh in his extreme fury. Fine, then I will oblige. In any case, this person was not a disciple of the academy, so it would be fine even if he killed him. The Rain Emperor moved. Xiao, he appeared in front of Ji Yutong with a flash. He shot out a punch, and boom, it was like a star was falling, unmatched in its dominance. Ji Yutong couldn't help but be astonished, and hurriedly moved to parry. Peng! He retreated backwards in a hurry, feeling all the bones in his body were trembling, which was extremely uncomfortable. Though the Rain Emperor had also taken a few steps back, the distance he had retreated was clearly shorter than Ji Yutong. It could not be any more obvious. Ji Yutong was inferior to the Rain Emperor. Everyone was dumbfounded. A mere heaven soul actually managed to get the upper hand in a clash with a first secret monarch tier. Who would have believed this? Hiss, this was a monster that was capable of being equal to Ji Wuming, Hong Huang, and other such supreme monarch tiers. Yet Ling Han shook his head slightly. Though the Rain Emperor had heaven-defying good fortune, and had refined the corpse of a 9th heaven celestial king, this clearly was not comparable to Ji Wuming, who was the direct reincarnation of a 9th heaven celestial king. If the Rain Emperor was only this strong, then in a battle of equals, the Rain Emperor was definitely not Ji Wuming's match. Chapter 2209 Enrolled into the Academy. Chapter 2209 Enrolled into the Academy. However, even so, it was still a piece of cake for the Rain Emperor to suppress Ji Yutong. Perhaps when the Rain Emperor experienced another heaven-defying stroke of luck, he could further boost his battle prowess, and be truly ranked in the top tier. The Rain Emperor shot out countless punches. He had long since walked out his own path, but at that time, his cultivation level was too low, and he had still been far from reaching the height of regulations. But it was a different story now. He had blended regulations in, and the Rain Emperor's path had also truly become clear. In front of many eyes, the Rain Emperor completely had the upper hand, with each punch stronger than the last, suppressing Ji Yutong completely. Ji Yutong was initially embarrassed and furious. He, a great first secret monarch tier, was actually being suppressed by a dividing soul tier. But it was quickly followed by great shock, because there was not just one such freak in the Saintly Origin Academy. And this kind of person would have boundless future prospects. The heights they could reach was not something that he could even imagine. Which also meant that no matter how humiliated he was today, he would not have a chance for revenge in future. The purpose behind establishing the academy was to nurture talent, and even more effort of nurturing would be concentrated on a prodigy like the Rain Emperor. If anyone dared to touch a hair on the head of the Rain Emperor, just see if those ninth heaven celestial kings wouldn't explode. When he thought about this, Ji Yutong's fighting spirit naturally declined greatly. Continuing the battle would only result in a terrible defeat, and he would not be able to get revenge, either, so what was the point in fighting? Humph, I am a first secret monarch tier, and I disdain from bullying a mere dividing soul tier. Throwing down a line that fitted the situation, he suddenly turned and left. Of course, no one would believe his nonsense, but his strength was obvious. Who would dare to expose his wounds right in front of him? The Rain Emperor did not pursue. He closed his eyes slightly, pondering on his own shortcomings in the previous battle. What was so terrifying about prodigies? It was that they would never be satisfied with their own achievements. Instead, they would continue to cautiously and conscientiously advance to a stronger level. Ling Han also felt strange. They had created such a great ruckus, but why was there still no movement from the academy? Could it be they really wanted them to sweep through the entire academy? Inside the academy, several powerful figures were gathered for discussion. These four youths are not bad, especially those two men. They have both attained dividing 9 souls, a 9th heaven celestial king said. He was the eternity celestial king, his cultivation level carrying on through eternity. A second 9th heaven celestial king nodded, and said, the invasion from the foreign realm is close at hand, and massive changes have also taken place in the heaven and earth. Otherwise, not even one prodigy that has attained dividing 9 souls may appear in a whole epoch. His title was Everlasting Youth, and he was a veteran among veteran celestial kings. A third 9th heaven celestial king said, even if they have cultivated to dividing 9 souls, it is not definite that they would become 9th heaven celestial kings, and so many dividing 9 souls prodigies have appeared this time. Would it be possible that an even stronger existence could emerge? His title was Treading Clouds, and he was also a veteran celestial king. Heavenly Venerable Tier? The Eternity Celestial King thought for a moment, but then shook his head. Becoming a Heavenly Venerate is not possible through mere effort and natural talent. The heaven and earth would suppress you, and without finding a suitable trigger, there would be no way to cast off the shackles of heaven and earth, and advance to the Heavenly Venerable Tier. That's right. The heaven and earth would not allow an uncontrollable force to appear. Through the ages, just how many heavenly venerates had there been? The everlasting youth celestial king agreed. But this time, the invasion of the foreign realm will directly affect the survival of the heaven and earth. Perhaps the heaven and earth will also change to a limited extent. See, isn't the appearance of the Dragon's Gate Mountain a compromise from the heaven and earth? Yet Treading Clouds' celestial king had a different opinion. A thought suddenly came to the Eternity Celestial King, and he exclaimed, if your deduction is correct, then wouldn't that mean that those 3 he pointed at the skies have all been born for the calamity? Otherwise, I definitely do not believe that anyone can surpass regulations, Treading Clouds' Celestial King said. Just how long have the 3 of us stagnated in the 9th heaven Celestial King tier? Yet it is still complete darkness ahead of us, and we cannot glimpse the slightest sliver of a chance to advance further. It is this heaven and earth that has restricted us, just like the restrictions on the height of regulations. Unless the heaven and earth loosens the restrictions, there will be no one that can step out of the pinnacle of the Celestial King tier. Which also means that the invasion of the foreign realm is actually a chance. Maybe. This group of youths, as well as Imperial Void, Zi Luo, Na Dong, and the other newly promoted 9th heaven celestial kings all have a chance of snatching this opportunity to transcend the heaven and earth. The three celestial kings looked at one another, and all of them sighed. Even among ninth heaven celestial kings, there were differences in strength. The three great celestial kings that they had mentioned, like Imperial Void, Zi Luo, and Na Dong, were well-known figures even among ninth heaven celestial kings. Some have only advanced into ninth heaven celestial king tier for only tens of billions of years, while there were some that had been at this level for as long as 5 or 6 epochs. However, true overlords among ninth heaven celestial kings all had a chance of breaking through to the heavenly venerable tier. Yet they were still quite some distance away, and were not qualified for that. When we defeat the troops of the foreign realm this time, I wish to journey into the foreign realm, the Eternity Celestial King suddenly said. Are you mad? The everlasting youth Celestial King paled. The heaven and earth of the foreign realm is completely different from the celestial realm. The regulations we cultivate would be completely useless there. After entering that place, we would only be able to battle by depending on the regulations that are locked within our bodies. Once they are fully exhausted, our strength would decline to an inconceivable level, which may only be at the severing mundane tier. This was applicable for foreign realm elites. That was why the celestial realm had been able to hold on for so long. Brother everlasting youth, in this heaven and earth, there was never any possibility for us to stand out. But when we reach the foreign realm, while we would still have to start from the very beginning again, there is a chance that we could leap from a small pond into the bigger ocean, and have more space for development. The Eternity Celestial King proposed another point of view. That's right. The Treading Clouds Celestial King nodded. The overall level of cultivation of the foreign realm is higher than ours. Otherwise, it would be us that would be the invaders. Since that is the case, the chances of breaking through to the heavenly venerable tier would also be considerably increased there. We can attain the ninth heaven, and that means that our natural talent and aptitude is all top tier. As long as we were given a chance, why wouldn't we be able to break out of ninth heaven? Everlasting Youth Celestial King was silent for a while, and then said, all of that would have to depend on the final battle. If we lose, there is no need to mention anything else. Naturally. The other two celestial kings nodded as well. Only if the celestial realm was secured would they be able to think of other matters. Otherwise, when the nest overturned, would there be any egg remaining intact? All right, enroll these 4 young people into the academy. It is not proper to have them continue to block the gates, the Treading Cloud Celestial King said smilingly. He stretched out a hand, and tapped a few times on empty air. Instantly, a decree appeared above the academy. The 4 of you, don't cause any more trouble. Enter the academy immediately, and there naturally will be someone to make arrangements for you. The words were very frank and straightforward, with absolutely no beating around the bush. Ling Han smiled slightly. He rose up and stowed the table and chairs all into the Black Tower. They could cause trouble, but if they did not behave even when a celestial king had spoken, that would only be a suicidal course of action. They entered into the academy, and an ascending origin tier elite immediately approached. Smiling, he said, "Youths, follow me." Ascending origin tier was really not much in a celestial king tier force, and they could not put on any airs at all. Yet Ling Han and the rest did not dare treat him lightly. There was a need to give adequate respect to an elite. They entered into the academy, and the ascending origin tier elite introduced himself. My surname is Luo, and you may address me as Mr. Luo. Mr. Luo. Ling Han and his group went with his flow. Mr. Luo nodded, and then asked, what regulations do you mainly cultivate? Whatever regulations they cultivated, they would be placed on the mountain that corresponded to that regulation. Cultivating like this would mean half the work with twice the results. Ling Han scratched his head, and said, Mr. Luo, you should ask me what regulations I don't cultivate. I would be able to answer that better. Mr. Luo means that no member escapes unscathed from a family disaster, which, in this case, refers to the celestial realm. Chapter 22:10 Are you threatening me? Chapter 22:10 Are you threatening me? How arrogant. For most people, their energy was limited, especially in the case of prodigies. To attain quick success, they should definitely focus on a single type of regulations, and improve their cultivation level. If there were two people with similar aptitude, and one focused on cultivating regulations of water, while the other cultivated both regulations of water and fire, it would definitely be the one who focused solely on cultivating regulation of water that would improve faster, and in an actual battle, it would also be the former who would be stronger because they could use their superior cultivation level to suppress their opponent. Only after advancing into the Celestial King tier where advancement was really too slow would one turn to cultivate other regulations. Otherwise, they would only be idling their time away. What did Ling Han mean? He had cultivated the majority of regulations, and that was why he said it would be better to ask him which regulations he did not cultivate. You were just a mere dividing soul tier, and wouldn't such excessive greed affect your progress? Mr. Luo faltered for a moment, and then burst out laughing. He was actually not angered. He had obtained a personal message transmitted through divine sense from the Celestial Kings, commanding that he should properly entertain these four people. And being able to obtain a personal command from the ninth heaven Celestial Kings regarding them, these four people were naturally out of the ordinary. Thus, though Mr. Luo faltered for a moment, he did not think that Ling Han was being too arrogant. Perhaps this was the exact reason that he had gained the recognition of the Celestial Kings. Fine then, what regulations don't you cultivate? Mr. Luo asked. Seems to be only regulation of poison, Ling Han answered after some thought. Mr. Luo was troubled now. He looked at those majestic great mountains at this moment, and did not know where he should arrange for Ling Han's accommodations. I can stay anywhere, Ling Han said with a smile. He had obtained 9 source powers of heaven and earth, and this was the best treasure for comprehending regulations. Even after he advanced into Celestial King tier, he could still continue comprehension. Hu Niu and the Empress did not have any specific requirements, either. They, too, possessed a source power of heaven and earth, and could completely break through to Celestial King tier with that. As for the Rain Emperor, he did not need it, either, because he had refined the remains of a Celestial King, and this was more or less equivalent to a source power of heaven and earth. Thus, after a round of questions, all 4 of them were very carefree, which made Mr. Luo slightly depressed. He had never seen such students, and 4 of them had appeared at the same time. All right then, I'll just randomly arrange your accommodations. Mr. Luo couldn't be bothered to deal with the headache, and simply handed the power over to the 4 of them. The Herb Mountain then. The thought suddenly came to Ling Han. Ah! Mr. Luo would never have imagined that Ling Han would come up with such an idea. Even if he was an ascending origin tier elite, he was still clearly dazed for a moment, being completely baffled. Seeing no objections arise from the Rain Emperor and the others, Mr. Luo couldn't help but ask, "Are you sure?" "Sure." Ling Han and the others all nodded. In any case, for comprehension of regulations, they had source powers of heaven and earth and the remains of the Celestial King, and in the case of cultivation, the 10,000 times acceleration effects of the Black Tower was even more powerful, so there was absolutely no need for them to draw support from any external conditions. What Ling Han needed were the resources that only the Saintly Origin Academy could provide. All right then. Mr. Luo nodded. He had obtained instructions from the Celestial Kings that he was to give Ling Han and his group enough independence, so he did not make any further efforts of persuasion. The 4 of them found 4 neighboring abodes on the Herb Mountain, and then settled down. Of course, the Empress and Hu Niu would definitely be staying together with Ling Han, while the Rain Emperor would be entering into the Black Tower for cultivation. The brothers discussed cultivation for a while, sharing their knowledge, and both felt that they had derived some benefit from their conversation. Their arrival in the academy gave rise to a commotion. Very quickly, everyone found out that Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were supreme monarch tiers just like Ji Wuming and Hong Huang. They were clearly only heaven souls, yet could match a first secret monarch tier, or even suppress the latter. Everyone was discussing them spiritedly. Those like Ji Wuming, Hong Huang, and the others were really too strong, and even monarch tiers would willingly bow to them and follow their leadership, causing the forces of these 4 people to be stronger than ever before. Yet now, another 2 such supreme monarch tiers had come, and they were sworn brothers at that. If they advanced one step further, and also became immortal palace tiers, then wouldn't it become the very strongest force inside the academy? Would Ji Wuming and the others just watch as this happened? The answer was soon revealed. Merely a day later, a person had arrived in front of the abodes of Ling Han and his group. This was a first secret monarch tier, and his flame of life had burnt for at least over 1 billion years. When Ling Han first set eyes on him, he felt a stabbing pain, and only after channeling his origin power did this feeling finally vanish. This person was very strong, at least, he was stronger than Ji Yutong. I am Hu Yang. This first secret monarch tier smiled, his smile very gentle. I have previously stayed in the Imperial Void Sect for a while. The Imperial Void Sect. And what did previously mean? He could resign even after joining the Imperial Void Sect. I have come on behalf of Lord Hong Huang to invite the 4 of you to join our Huang Alliance. Hu Yang was very approachable, his smile gentle and mild. Oh. Ling Han declined to comment. At present, it was only him, the Empress, and Hu Niu here. The Rain Emperor was a madman of cultivation, and wanted to cultivate to the consummate level of Heaven's soul as soon as possible, so he was still in seclusion in the Black Tower. Lord Hong Huang knows that Brother Han and Brother Rain have excellent aptitude, and your future accomplishments will definitely be astonishing as well. Thus, he has deliberately left out 2 positions of Vice Alliance Leader for Brother Han and Brother Rain, Hu Yang continued. Ling Han chuckled, and was just about to speak when yet another person appeared. This was a beautiful woman dressed completely in red, and looked fiery. I am Chi Ya. This woman was also fiery in the way she spoke. Our fairy Jiolan would like to invite the 4 of you over for a chat to discuss the details of a mutual aspiration. Hu Yang frowned, and said, Chi Ya, all matters depend on the order of arrival. I have already issued an invitation to Brother Han and his group, so you had better wait for next time. What a joke. In our world of cultivators, what order of arrival is there? Everything is based on strength. Chi Ya's expression was disdainful. Our fairy Jiolan will definitely inspire or throughout the celestial realm in the future, and become the sole empress. Assisting our fairy to ascend the throne is the truly wisest course of action. Absolute nonsense. Hu Yang rebuked, and he truly deserved the name Hu Yang One. When he spoke the word nonsense, he did not show the slightest discomfort. Lord Hong Huang is the only great emperor, conquering through all the ages, and suppressing for all eternity. Humph, you can only speak tough now. Not long after, our fairy will teach Hong Huang a lesson. Chi Ya's expression was still filled with disdain. Hold on. Ling Han pressed his hands down. There is no need for you guys to compete. I have no interest in joining either side, so the 2 of you had best just return. When these words fell, both Hu Yang and Chi Ya shut their mouths. Then, they turned to look at him, their eyes slightly cold. Young Master Han, this is an invitation from Lord Hong Huang, Hu Yang said menacingly, completely shifting his previously gentle appearance, just like a fierce beast that had torn off its pretense, showing its true ferocious colors. Chi Ya was even more direct. She drew out a long spear, and exclaimed, since our fairy has said that she wishes to invite the 4 of you over, I will definitely accomplish this task. Ling Han flicked the sleeve of his robes, and said, I have always despised threats, so the 2 of you had best leave as soon as possible before I truly get angry. Young Master Han is really unwilling to give us some face. Hu Yang asked finally, his fighting spirit blazing, turning into multiple blades and seals. There was also a clanging sound that resounded through the heavens, and was incredibly domineering. Are you threatening me? Ling Han countered. Chapter 2211, True Might of First Secret. Chapter 2211, True Might of First Secret. I only wish to ask young Master Han to reconsider, Hu Yang said, his tone having lost all its previous good nature, exuding an air of imperiousness. He. Ling Han took the initiative to move, and grabbed out at Hu Yang. Boom, the giant hand spread out like a layer of dense clouds. Hu Yang smirked coldly. Young Master Han, do you think I'm Ji Yutong? He sent out a punch in response to Ling Han's giant hand. Boom, a loud sound spread out, and Ling Han's and Hu Yang's body trembled. Endless brilliance surged out, turning into layers of seals. In this clash, the 2 of them had actually come out even. Ling Han appeared slightly surprised. This Hu Yang had not been making empty boasts. He was indeed stronger than Ji Yutang, and could be ranked in the top tier even among monarch tiers. However, he was still a far way away from Ling Han, Ji Wuming, and their likes. Otherwise, with an advantage of a major tier on his side, he should be completely capable of overwhelming Ling Han. Hu Yang's expression was filled with pride as he declared, "I have cultivated severing mundane tier 7 times, and have struck myself a total of 35 times. Though I still have not attained dividing 9 souls, my battle prowess would not be much inferior to dividing 9 souls." He was a supreme prodigy himself, but Hong Huang was far more freakish than him. Furthermore, his background was too extraordinary, and that was why he had been willing to fall under the latter's rule. Otherwise, he himself should be a great emperor, so how could he be subordinate to another? Ling Han merely chuckled in response. No matter how many strikes he delivered, he was only severing mundane tier at most, and could not be compared with dividing 9 souls. Otherwise, Hu Yang would not have tied with him in battle. Was your advantage in cultivation level meaningless? After all, only if one had cultivated every cultivation level to perfection could he be supreme in his brilliance. I am quite intrigued, Ling Han said smilingly. Ji Yutang was too weak, and Ling Han had been able to suppress him single-handedly. What would be interesting about that? Intrigued. Hu Yang humphed coldly. This gentle, mild young man showed a fanaticism, and this was his true colors. Then let me first ensure that you know the true measure of your own abilities to avoid you acting inappropriately in front of Lord Hong Huang. This time, he took the initiative to move. He sent out a punch with his eyes wide, a frightening divine light shining brilliantly. Mystical power of immortal palace tier? Ling Han was slightly curious. In the face of this divine light, it was hard for him to even open his eyes. He was completely unable to see the situation ahead of him. It was not only his vision that was affected, but also divine sense as well, as if he had indeed become blind. The immortal palace tier cultivated the mystery realm within their bodies, heart, liver, spleen, lung, and kidney. With cultivation of every mystery realm, they would possess a strong ability. For example, the dazzling divine light shining from Hu Yang's eyes was one of the abilities. This was suppression of the cultivation level. Even if Ling Han was equivalent to First Secret, he had not truly crossed over into the immortal palace tier, after all, so he could not be immune. It was a dominance of cultivation level, and could not be helped. As the divine light shone brilliantly, Hu Yang charged out, a fist aimed directly for Ling Han's face. As the saying went, when you get into a fight, never aim for the face. Yet he purposely made a move for Ling Han's face, so his intentions to humiliate him could not be more obvious. Presently, Ling Han could only depend on his instincts warning him about danger. Otherwise, if he were to react when he felt the incoming force, it would already be too late. He smirked coldly, and his right hand stretched out to grab Hu Yang's wrist. Involuntarily, Hu Yang's expression shifted slightly. In a situation when the 5 senses and divine sense were affected, he could still react so precisely. This was a little shocking. This was the battle instinct of a supreme monarch tier. As he thought this, his attacks did not slow down in the slightest. Peng, 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 his feet moved, and he began circling around Ling Han, unleashing punches in a quick barrage. Break! Ling Han shouted. He was naturally unwilling to be beaten down like this. Boom! Great clash of source powers blasted out, and fiercely exploded with him at the center. Hu Yang was instantly pale with fear. This destructive power caused a chill to rise all over his body, and he felt that he would be instantly turned to dust if there was the slightest contact. Hurriedly, he retreated, not daring to face this head-on. Ling Han did not pursue. Instead, he channeled origin power, and multiple seals flickered in his eyes, causing his sight to slowly go back to normal. He stated calmly, "Your first mystery realm has been formed through temperance of fire." "That's right," Hu Yang answered proudly. "You have attained dividing 9 souls, which is comparable to the First Secret, but against a true First Secret, you still have a long way to go. The strength that I have previously shown is only one of the abilities of my mystery realm, and a negligible part of it at that. And now, I will show you the true power of the mystery realm of the immortal palace tier." With a soft exclamation, Boom, fiery flames were instantly ignited all over his body, and the clothing on his upper body was instantly burnt into dust. His body had become semi-translucent, and his heart was easily visible. The first mystery realm I cultivated was the heart, he declared proudly. It was tempered in the flames that would never be extinguished in an epoch of burning mountain, and I can also draw on a sliver of might of the inextinguishable burning mountain. Do you know what that means? The inextinguishable burning flame is at the celestial king tier. Hence, with my grasp of a sliver of the inextinguishable burning flame, it would be equivalent to having possessed a sliver of celestial king tier might. Ha ha ha, this is the true power of immortal palace tier. Boom, his heart turned into a raging furnace. No, it would be better to call it a volcanic crater, spurting crimson red lava, endlessly surging out, and turning the surroundings into an ocean of flames. Wung, wung, wung. However, when the lava flow reached the herbs and sides of the abode, multiple streaks of light flashed, turning into brilliantly shining seals, stopping the lava's invasion, and protecting the medicinal ingredients and structure. This was a formation laid down by a celestial king, and that was why Hu Yang dared to move recklessly. Otherwise, there were masses of valuable herbs on this herb mountain, and some of them were even astonishingly old celestial medicines. How could Hu Yang afford the reimbursement? This lava was extremely terrifying, with shards of regulations moving within it, and turning into multiple ancient seals. Burning Mountain was a famous ancient mountain of the celestial realm. The time of its existence could no longer be traced, and it was one of the most ancient locations of the celestial realm. Furthermore, Burning Mountain constantly experienced volcanic eruptions, and the underground flames burned endlessly. That was also a holy land for concocting alchemical pills. A great many alchemists would go there, and draw on the help of the underground flames for concocting alchemical pills. It could greatly increase the success rate and effects of the completed alchemical pill. Now that Hu Yang had plucked the flames of the inextinguishable flames of Burning Mountain to refine into his first mystery realm, he had also gained a sliver of might of this ancient flame. There is still time to correct your attitude now. Hu Yang's whole person was flowing with lava. Like a god of fire, he strode towards Ling Han, an expression of arrogance on his face. They were both monarch tiers, but with the different power of heaven and earth that they plucked upon advancing to the immortal palace tier, their battle prowess would also be greatly different. Ji Yutong? He had originated from the Imperial Void sect, so how could he be compared with that kind of trash? Quite interesting, Ling Han murmured. Boom, a flame also surged from his body, standing off against the lava. 9 Heavens Flame, a source power of heaven and earth. Unfortunately, due to the limits of Ling Han's cultivation level, the 9 Heavens Flame could only form a shield of fire around him, and could not unfold a territory to stand off against this omnipresent lava. Yet Ling Han was completely unconcerned. Instead, he was quite keen. That was because the 9 Heavens Flame was presently swallowing the lava. Though the rate was very slow, it was indeed happening. It could not be helped. In terms of essence, the 9 Heavens Flame was definitely stronger. This was a source power of heaven and earth. The 9 Heavens Flame was analyzing the lava, or to be more precise, it was analyzing the regulation of fire in the lava, gradually absorbing it and making that power its own. This was extremely necessary. If Ling Han could advance into Celestial King tier now, the 9 Heavens Flame would naturally rise with him, and cross over into Celestial King tier as well, but that was only limited to the first heaven. This was the restriction of heaven and earth. However, the 9 Heavens Flame still had room for improvement, and that was to fuse with other regulations of fire. And what the 9 Heavens Flame was presently doing was precisely this. Chapter 22:12 Counterattack. Chapter 22:12 Counterattack. Why did the 9 Heavens Flame have such an ability? That was because Ling Han had split it out so that it had become one of his divided souls, giving it independence. Otherwise, if it was just a source power inside Ling Han's body, how could it possess such an ability? Thus, it might seem as if Ling Han splitting the source powers of heaven and earth out was weakening himself, yet it had allowed the 9 Heavens Flame to become stronger. This was also a kind of confidence for him. He had a firm belief in his own strength. Ultimately, external powers could not be depended on. Ling Han, are you still unaware of propriety? Hu Yang shouted harshly. Ling Han ignored him. The nine heavens flame was decoding the profound secrets within the inextinguishable burning flame. Once it succeeded, it would be able to easily absorb the might of the flames, unlike now, when it was only depending on the height of its essence to repress it. Furthermore, after decoding this kind of profound secrets of regulations, the nine heavens flame would be able to possess a corresponding power of regulation, and that was a great strengthening factor for it. For Ling Han, this was a good thing as well. He could also observe and study it through the nine heavens flame. You are too arrogant. Hu Yang was furious. He was already surrounded by his inextinguishable burning flame, and Ling Han actually still dared to ignore him. What kind of disdain was this towards him? He charged over, and sent out a punch, flames soaring to the heavens. Ling Han, too, shot out a fist. Boom, the two fists collided, flames rose in all directions, and lava sprayed out. Hu Yang roared, shooting out punch after punch, determined to suppress Ling Han. Ling Han countered carelessly. Hu Yang was indeed very strong, but if he wanted to suppress Ling Han, he was being delusional. It might be difficult to decide who was stronger between Hu Yang and the Rain Emperor, but there was absolutely no way he could be Ling Han's match. Ling Han did not make a harsh move, because he was very intrigued by the inextinguishable burning flame. Hu Yang spoke of it so proudly, probably because this inextinguishable burning flame was not easily obtained. Thus, since it was here already, Ling Han would naturally prefer to slack off and take a shortcut. In essence, the nine heavens flame was forcibly decoding the profound secrets of the inextinguishable burning flame. This speed was too slow, so Ling Han could only continue to exchange blows with Hu Yang, unwilling to easily defeat this opponent. Of course, Hu Yang was indeed strong, and Ling Han, too, would need to put some effort if he wanted to defeat him. Hu Yang used all his powerful moves, celestial technique after celestial technique channeling from his hands, and boosted by the inextinguishable burning flame, his battle prowess was astonishingly strong. Even Ji Yutang would probably not last over 100 moves in front of him. This was a monster that had been nurtured in the Imperial Void sect. Ling Han mused ruefully that this was as expected of the Imperial Void Celestial King, who was the disciple of a heavenly venerate and one of the strongest ninth heaven celestial kings. Even the disciple that he nurtured could be so strong. However, if Hu Yang was already so strong, then what about Hong Huang? This guy, could it be that he was a member of the Sealed Emotion Palace? It was very possible. There was no rule that determined that a disciple of a heavenly venerate could not come and play around here. After all, if one were to be overly subjective and disregard the outside world, then even if he had the guidance of a heavenly venerate, his accomplishments would still be limited. Cultivators should battle all the way until they became the strongest. Ling Han's thoughts wandered idly, and after who knew how long, the nine heavens flame suddenly sent a message to him. It had already obtained all the secrets of the inextinguishable burning flame. Ling Han spread open his palm and looked, and the nine heavens flame had turned into an ancient seal, but compared to before, this seal had another stroke to it. Though it was pitifully tiny, it did indeed exist. This was just like how a single petal had already bloomed on a flower, and now the tip of the second petal had slightly extended. Though it was still very far off from blooming fully, it was still a start, after all. Understanding dawned on Ling Han. When the flower's 9 petals had bloomed, the 9 heavens flame would have reached the 9th heaven celestial king tier, but this was the pinnacle because the apex number of heaven and earth was 9, and it could not be surpassed. As long as you were still living in this galaxy, you would have to adhere to the regulations of heaven and earth. Ling Han frowned. Then, how did an illegitimate child like the heavenly venerable tier came to be? Everyone was inferior to regulations, so how were they supposed to break through the regulations? Could he go to the foreign realm? When this thought arose, Ling Han shocked himself. To say nothing of how he was going to pass through the connection point of the two realms, even if he could, the regulations he cultivated would be absolutely useless in the foreign realm, and it might be that his strength would be even weaker than severing mundane tier. Then, wouldn't it be just treading on dangerous ground? How exactly could he leap out of the pond of this heaven and earth? Ling Han couldn't help but feel vexed, and a feeling of annoyance rose up in him. Haha, do you now know fear? Hu Yang smirked coldly. He thought that Ling Han was frowning because he was afraid. Ling Han narrowed his eyes in a glare. I'm currently irritated, so are you asking for a beating? With his anger stoked, he immediately began a fierce counterattack. Boom, the 9 heavens flame unfolded, instantly expelling the lava, and opening up space for Ling Han's movements. What? Hu Yang mouthed this word, his face filled with disbelief. Even though a 5th severance could be considered monarch tier, and would definitely become a celestial king in the future, even when both were celestial kings, there wouldn't be a massive disparity in battle prowess. Why? Because every cultivation level that had been cultivated would affect the battle prowess of the celestial king, such as dividing 9 souls, or such as the mystery realms that he had formed when he had been in the immortal palace tier. Why did Hu Yang look down on Ji Yutong and see him as trash? That was because how Ji Yutong had cultivated his mystery realm was trash in his eyes, and the gap between their battle prowess was also incredibly obvious. Monarch tiers would have to cultivate every single cultivation level to perfection. Otherwise, even a monarch tier could degrade to become an emperor tier or a king tier. So what if he was destined to become a celestial king? That would only be trash among celestial kings, or he would have long since been killed before that. Ling Han was unconcerned, and only sent out his fists in a mad barrage of punches. Once he could ignore the inextinguishable burning flame, Hu Yang's battle prowess would have declined greatly, in relative terms, so how was he supposed to stop Ling Han's burst in attack? Impossible. Hu Yang finally called out. He had not gained his inextinguishable burning flame with his own power, but it was rather the Imperial Void Celestial King that had moved personally, and helped him to suppress the murderous and destructive power within the flame, which allowed him to obtain it after studying it for 90 years. This kind of fierce flame could even match the might of a Celestial King. The prerequisite was that he himself had already reached the Celestial King tier. This was also the basis of his arrogance. How many people in the Immortal Palace tier could reach this kind of height? Yet he had only managed to trap Ling Han for a while, and then the latter suddenly showed his divine might, and unraveled the inextinguishable burning flame. How was he supposed to believe this? There is nothing that is impossible. In my eyes, you are only trash, so what would be all that difficult about defeating trash? Ling Han asked calmly, flames exploding on his fist, and forming an ancient and majestic seal. Peng! 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 At first, Hu Yang could have lasted about 100 moves before defeat, but because his willpower had weakened, and his fighting spirit had also declined greatly, how was he supposed to stand off against Ling Han like this? He was thrashed harshly, and yowled continuously in pain. In just over a dozen moves, Hu Yang collapsed on the ground. The lava that covered the ground no longer bubbled and surged, having lost its source, and was quickly suppressed by the formation here, turning into nothing. Ling Han looked towards Chi Ya, and this fiery woman couldn't help but take a step back, a powerful fear in her expression, as if she was worried that Ling Han would beat her up as well. Go back and tell Jiulan Ling Han picked Hu Yang up and you as well. Go and tell Hong Huang, if they want to pay me a visit as guests, I welcome them. But they need to show some sincerity, and not let minor characters like you two come and bother me. Scram. With a toss, Hu Yang was immediately thrown off a far distance away. Chapter 22:13 Hong Huang moves. Chapter 22:13 Hong Huang moves. When Chi Ya saw this, she involuntarily shrunk back, and hurriedly turned and fled in a panic. Ha ha. Ling Han laughed, then sat down, and continued sipping his tea. Neither the Empress nor Hu Niu took it to heart. Though both Jiulan and Hong Huang had already advanced into the Immortal Palace tier, and had the might of a Supreme Monarch tier, there was no possible way that Ling Han wasn't a match for them. But this was the Saintly Origin Academy, so it did have some rules. He was sure that the two of them would not dare bully them so brazenly. However, after only a while had passed, a gigantic spirit palm descended from the skies. The palm was as sparkling and translucent as jade, multiple seals incredibly brilliant, and was descending on an unmatchable course. Ling Han hurriedly grabbed the two women, and used void space, moving rapidly. Boom! The massive palm descended. Boom! The 4 abodes of Ling Han and his group were simultaneously turned into rubble. Ling Han also spat out blood continuously. Thankfully, he had hidden the 2 women behind him, and they had not suffered too much impact, unlike Ling Han, who had been touched by the shock wave created by the massive spirit palm. This was too astonishing. It had just been the shock wave, and actually possessed such might. An ascending origin tier elite had moved. This is a warning. No one can humiliate one of my, Hong Huang's, people. A voice rang out calmly, bearing a boundless dominance. Hong Huang. The person who had moved was actually Hong Huang. He, too, was only a first secret as well. A supreme monarch tier was indeed powerful. Ling Han nodded internally. It was no wonder that Hong Huang could stand equal with Ji Wuming. If he were to fight with Ji Wuming, who was superior by a cultivation level, there was no need to question the result. He would be dying very tragically. He hadn't even appeared, and merely sent a palm strike from afar, and it was enough to inflict light injury on Ling Han. If he had not reacted in time, he would even have been severely wounded. Furthermore, this person was extremely overbearing. This was Saintly Origin Academy, but Hong Huang dared to make a move on Ling Han so brazenly, using his superiority to bully Ling Han, and completely ignoring the basic rules. This kind of arrogance was also a rarity. I will give you 3 days to come to our Huang Alliance and report, and become an odd jobs worker. Otherwise, the next thing I destroy would not be your abodes. Hong Huang's voice rang out again. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink as forfeit, humph, just asking for your own suffering. The voice ran out like thunder, with absolutely no reservations, as if even celestial kings were really below his notice. Ling Han's expression darkened. Hong Huang's actions had exceeded his expectations. Why did this guy dare to be so arrogant? First secret, he asked menacingly. Just because he was a cultivation level higher than him, he could be so overbearing? Fuck, did he think that Ling Han would not break through as well? Hong Huang, is it so fun to bully a rookie, someone whose cultivation level is lower like this? Another voice rang out calmly. Shichanzi, you dare interfere in my matters? Hong Huang's voice raised a notch, his dominance blazing even hotter. This second person was actually Shichanzi of the 4 great supreme monarch tiers. It was no wonder that he could stand off against Hong Huang. Hee hee. Shichanzi merely laughed calmly. I just can't bear to see it. If you want to fight, then I would not mind turning into a battle Buddha to spar with you. The winner of the last batter was not decided, so we should come to a conclusion this time, Hong Huang declared boomingly. Come fight. Xiao, a bright golden figure suddenly soared into the skies, and another figure shot into the air in quick succession. Boom! Dazzling light burst on the horizon immediately. There was clearly an endless distance, yet they could still see it clearly. The 2 great supreme monarch tiers had already begun their battle. Ling Han was surprised. Why had Shichanzi stepped out for him? Could it be that he, too, wanted to recruit him? No one knew exactly who had won in the battle of Hong Huang and Shichanzi, but Hong Huang made no further mention of telling Ling Han to become an odd jobs worker in the Huang Alliance, which showed that he had not defeated Shichanzi, at least. However, Shichanzi actually paid no further regard to Ling Han as well, which was quite surprising for Ling Han. After waiting another 3 days, Ling Han decided to pay a visit to this Shichanzi, and see what kind of character he actually was. He went alone, and arrived in front of the abode that Shichanzi was residing in. The doors to Shichanzi's abode were wide open, and a good-natured-looking young man stood at the side of the doorway. When he saw Ling Han approach, he bowed slightly, and said, So young Master Han has arrived. Lord Buddha's son has waited a long time. Please enter. What did he have up his sleeve? Ling Han strode into the abode. This was a completely different world. It had used a secret technique of space. From the outside, it did not look very large, but it was not the slightest bit small on the inside. There were lotus flowers planted all around the abode. Some were ordinary, and there were also 5-leaf silver lotus, 9-leaf golden lotus, 18-leaf purple lotus, and so on. Fragrance wafted from the lotus flowers, spreading far. When he walked deeper into the abode, there was a pure white lotus in a lake. The flower was about 3 meters in size, and in the center, a bald monk was seated, dressed in golden Buddhist robes. Ling Han glanced at him, and suddenly felt as if his soul had been sucked out of his body, sinking into an indescribable darkness. He was shocked, and hurriedly guarded his spirit and heart, and only then did he manage to pull his soul back. Shichanzi, one of the 4 great supreme monarch tiers. This guy was really too extraordinary. You would like to ask why I helped you? Ling Han had not spoken yet, and the monk was the first to speak. Ling Han nodded, and asked, why? There was absolutely no relation between them, so how could there be such kindness without any reason? Shichanzi smiled slightly. Can't it be that I intervened because I saw an injustice? Ling Han smiled as well, and said, though there is that possibility, I still think that there is a deeper reason. Shichanzi looked at Ling Han for a while, and then said, that's right. Someone asked me to move, and give you a hand. Who? Ling Han asked. That person told me not to reveal their name, so I am sorry. Shichanzi bowed slightly. Ling Han was curious. Though there were many people that were willing to help him, who had so much weight that they could ask Shichanzi to move, he truly could not think of who it could be. As he thought this, he said, no matter the case, I still have to thank you for your help. Shichanzi smiled, and said, however, helping you with this, I have indeed paid a heavy price. He did not avoid the issue, and pulled apart the front of his Buddhist robes, and there was a shocking palm print on his chest. Hong Huang's heaven and earth domineering fists has reached great accomplishment, he said as he pulled his Buddhist robes back. This person comes from the Sealed Emotion Palace, and is indeed not to be underestimated. The Sealed Emotion Palace. Ling Han's heart shuddered, and a few of his doubts had instantly been resolved. Why was Hu Yang willing to listen to Hong Huang's lead? That was because the Imperial Void Sect itself was subordinate to the Sealed Emotion Heavenly Venerable. And why did Hong Huang dare to be so arrogant? That was because a Heavenly Venerate was backing him up, and even the 9th Heaven Celestial Kings did not dare to interfere with his affairs overly much. Shichanzi dared to move, not because he was braver than the Celestial Kings, but because if it was he that interfered, there was no possibility it would cause a Heavenly Venerate to move in retaliation. In a battle of equals, to say nothing of a supreme existence like a Heavenly Venerate, even Celestial Kings would not be interfering. Otherwise, this kind of disciple would really be too weak, so what was the point of taking him as a disciple? This is a time immemorial pill, which is slightly beneficial for healing wounds, Ling Han said, then with a toss of his hand, he threw a pill bottle at Shichanzi. Shichanzi grabbed it, and couldn't help but be shocked. He exclaimed, this is an excellent grade of healing pill among 3-star alchemical pills. I never thought you would actually possess such a treasure, Yi, it is actually a 7th refinement at that. This time, he was really stunned. Chapter 22:14, Who had helped? Chapter 22:14, Who had helped? 7th refinement was relatively rare even among 4-star grandmasters. However, for a 4-star grandmaster to concoct a 3-star alchemical pill, and had cast 7th refinement on it at that person was too idle, wasn't he? I concocted it, Ling Han said smilingly. He had done him a huge favor, so he did not mind revealing some of his trump cards to the other party. Shichanzi was even more astonished. If Ling Han was only a 4-star grandmaster, even a 5-star alchemist would not have taken it to heart too much. After all, he was a supreme monarch tier, and would definitely be capable of becoming a 9th Heaven Celestial King in the future. In that case, was there any need for him to be concerned about a 5-star alchemist grandmaster? But Ling Han had another identity. He, too, was a supreme monarch tier that had attained dividing 9 souls. That was terrifying. The world actually had such a prodigy. Han Lin, I have underestimated you, Shichanzi stated calmly. Ling Han chuckled, and asked, how is Hong Huang's battle prowess? Very strong. Shichanzi looked solemn, and then smiled. However, he has also been blasted by my eternity tap, so his injuries are definitely not lighter than mine. This smile was filled with confidence and pride. It looked like this monk had not yet been freed from human desires and passions, and was still filled with ambition and competitiveness. Eternity Tap. Ling Han suddenly recalled that when he had joined forces with Ji Wuming previously against Yulon Fenghua, Ji Wuming had used a secret technique that caused Yulon Fenghua's expression to change drastically, and he also exclaimed the words Eternity Tap. Could it be that Ji Wuming had some relation with Shichanzi? He was struck with a brainwave, and said, "It was Ji Wuming who asked you to help." He said these words with a tone of certainty. Shichanzi faltered slightly, and then smiled. "I never thought you would have guessed it so quickly." Thoughts flew in Ling Han's mind. Ji Wuming was a reincarnated ninth heaven celestial king, but his identity before reincarnation had been guessed by Xu Yarong and Tang Minglong, yet Ling Han did not have the slightest idea. This extremely violent and murderous guy, Ji Wuming, was actually a member of the Buddhist sect. Hold on, there were only a total of 3 ninth heaven celestial kings that had emerged from the Buddhist sect, but 2 of them had been overseeing the Buddhist sect all this while, and only the founder of the Buddhist sect, the ninth heaven celestial king, was rumored to have vanished. However, no one knew if he had actually died, or was presently cultivating in seclusion somewhere. Now, he should be able to confirm, Ji Wuming was the reincarnation of the 9 Lights Ancient Buddha. No wonder. Now that the 9 Lights Ancient Buddha had spoken, Shichanzi would naturally do as he commanded. This was a command from his ancestor. With this time immemorial pill, the recovery time for my injuries would be sped up by about a month or so, estimated. Shichanzi laughed loudly. Then, I will go and find Hong Huang for another spar, and drive him crazy. Their strength was equal, and previously neither side had one. However much time Shichanzi needed to recover, Hong Huang would probably need around the same amount of time. Yet now that Shichanzi had a 7th refinement time immemorial pill, his recovery time would be greatly expedited. When he sought out Hong Huang for another battle, should the latter accept or refuse the challenge? If he accepted, he would definitely be defeated in battle. If he refused, Shichanzi would mock him. Ling Han couldn't help but smile as well. Hong Huang had bullied him, and he was still unable to avenge himself at present, so he was glad to have Shichanzi use this kind of method to cause Hong Huang some displeasure. Furthermore, there was also some of Ling Han's contribution to it, so it could be considered that he had avenged himself slightly. Ji Wuming was really an interesting character. He clearly would be able to match Hong Huang himself, yet chose to delegate the task to Shichanzi. Was this deliberately done so that Ling Han would not have to be grateful to him? Ling Han shook his head. Ultimately, a great battle would break out between himself and Ji Wuming, and he had a feeling that if a new heavenly venerate could emerge in this heaven and earth, then it would definitely be either himself or Ji Wuming. No matter how strong Shichanzi, Hong Huang, and Jiolan, whom he had not met, were, there was ultimately something they lacked, and Ling Han did not think that they could rise up above the rest. Ling Han took the chance to ask Shichanzi about some matters of the 9 Lights Ancient Buddha, but Shichanzi behaved with great propriety. He was very upfront with whatever he should say, but he did not spit out a single word about whatever he shouldn't. After a long while, Ling Han's understanding of the 9 Lights Ancient Buddha was still stuck on the level of legends that were known to outsiders. He knew that Shichanzi would definitely not speak, and thus thanked him, and left the latter's abode. At present, 6 supreme monarch tiers had appeared in the academy, but there was no doubt that Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were the weakest. They had not yet crossed over into the Immortal Palace tier, and were completely unqualified to stand off against Ji Wuming and the others. I should go and break through to the Immortal Palace tier, Ling Han murmured. Like the Severing Mundane tier and Dividing Soul tier, breaking through to the Immortal Palace tier would also require going to a specific location, but what was different was that breaking through to the Heaven Soul, Earth Soul, Yin Soul, and Yang Soul would require going to different places for all of them, and breaking through to the Severing Mundane tier required going only once, and while Immortal Palace tier was the same like Dividing Soul tier, wherein one would have to go to an Immortal Palace tier mystery realm every time they broke through to the next cultivation level, they could repeatedly go to the same location to completely construct all 5 mystery realms. Thinking of this problem, Ling Han couldn't help but ask Small Tower, is there some cultivation level above 5th secret of Immortal Palace tier, like 5th Severance or Dividing 9 Souls? And I thought you wouldn't ask. Small Tower laughed. It seemed like this guy was treating him with disdain again. Ling Han shook his head. I knew that you would speak sharply. Did you think that you would hurt me with just a minor blow? Small Tower did not speak flippantly again, and said, the mystery realms in the human body are not just limited to the 5 organs, there is a 6th organ. Ling Han faltered, and then gaped slightly. What you mean is that there is a total of 11 minor levels in this cultivation level. Dividing soul tier was already mad enough. One could only reach consummate level after cultivating 9 minor levels, but the immortal palace tier was even crazier as there was a total of 11. If your maths was passable, that would be right. Small Tower did not forget to continue treating Ling Han with disdain. However, there is no restriction of immortal palace tier mystery realms, like you would have to go here for this cultivation level, and go there for that cultivation level, and there is no time limit to the time they are opened. It paused, and then continued, you have the 10,000 times acceleration effects of the Black Tower, so it would not be very difficult for you to cultivate all 11 mystery realms fully, in probably just several billion years. Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. Several billion years? That was too long, wasn't it? Thankfully, the 10,000x acceleration effect of the Black Tower was indeed strong enough. After conversion, he would only need several tens of thousands of years in real time. Counting off on his fingers, if even immortal palace tier would need several tens of thousands of years, then how long would ascending origin tier take? And there was also the 9th heaven celestial king tier. How many years more would he need to be qualified to break through to the heavenly venerable tier? The invasion of the foreign realm was close at hand, or the heaven and earth would not have been so urgent, either. Did he have that much time? Even so, there was no way that Ling Han would settle the matter just by cultivating 5 mystery realms. Only if he had cultivated every single cultivation level to perfection would he have hope of breaking through to the heavenly venerable tier. Even if he was slightly remiss, it would be imperfect. Otherwise, Ji Wuming would not have needed to reincarnate and cultivate again right from the beginning. All right, I'll study first how the first mystery realm is to be built. Immortal Palace tier meant to construct mystery realms in one's own body, but how was a mystery realm to be constructed? They would have to go to a natural mystery realm and be enlightened, drawing on the power within to complete the construction. Hu Yang, for example, had drawn on the inextinguishable burning flame to refine his heart into the first mystery realm inside the human body. Ling Han's situation was more special. There were too many regulations that he had cultivated. Thus, he had to think about which mystery realm he should go to refine his own first mystery realm. Was every cultivation level the same or different? The best option is to use the regulations of time to temper. In that case, after building 5 mystery realms, your physique would also evolve into the greatest eternity immortal physique. Small Tower paused, and then continued, then after refining the 6th organ, your physique would be improved further, becoming the greatest eternity everlasting physique. Chapter 22:15 A Special Mystery Realm. Chapter 22:15 A Special Mystery Realm. Past, present, and future are eternity, while everlasting is superior to yin and yang, Small Tower said calmly. Refining the 11 mystery realms with regulations of time can allow transcendence of past and present and linking to the future. Ling Han sighed. I don't know the details, but this is very awesome in short, right? Of course. Small Tower declared proudly. Can Hu Nyo and the others also construct 11 mystery realms? Ling Han asked again. Yes, there is no rule that says a 4th severance cannot attain dividing 9 souls. However, without even attaining the 5th severance, wanting to attain dividing 9 souls would naturally be as difficult as ascending to the heavens, Small Tower said. There wasn't the slightest change in its tone, and this was also the reason why Ling Han was unwilling to bicker with it. It was basically a dead person, so it wouldn't get angry at all. Then, would there still be hopes of becoming a heavenly venerate? Ling Han asked hopefully. Small Tower scoffed, and said, even if you can cultivate the 5th severance, dividing 9 souls, and 11 mystery realms to the pinnacle, whether you can or cannot become a heavenly venerate will still depend on luck. Throughout the ages, there have been innumerable prodigies. Do you think that there were few people like you? There were indeed very few, but at least one would appear every epoch. Yet how many of them had actually successfully become heavenly venerates? Ling Han nodded. In this heaven and earth, even if there would be miracles due to the invasion of the foreign realm and rise of new prodigies, this number should only be one. Throughout history, there has never been a previous case of two heavenly venerates emerging in a single epoch. In fact, after a heavenly venerate came to being, the next heavenly venerate would only emerge after at least 10 epochs. Then, after leaping out of this heaven and earth, perhaps Luan Xing and Hu Niu may also be able to become heavenly venerates, Ling Han murmured to himself. Otherwise, even if they cultivated both dividing 9 souls and 11 mystery realms, it would still be useless. Perhaps, the cultivation surroundings of the foreign realm were more exceptional, and did not have such harsh demands that one had to be fully equipped with the 5th severance, dividing 9 souls, and 11 mystery realms to be able to break through to the heavenly venerable tier. This is a dangerous thought, Small Tower said solemnly. Though the Tower of 3 Realms is a heavenly venerable tier treasure that has surpassed regulations, it was still forged in this heaven and earth, and only would it be effective in this heaven and earth. In the simplest example, your present 10,000x acceleration effects would not be effective in the foreign realm. Very simple, a different heaven and earth meant different regulations. For the sake of strength, I have to make an attempt. Ling Han's stand was very firm. Though the heaven and earth had broken their own rules, and allowed the Dragon's Gate mountain to descend ahead of time, the existence of heavenly venerable tier was unrecognized by the heaven and earth. If there was a gap, it should be impossible to advance into this cultivation level. Alright, let's just set this aside first. At present, the priority is to break through to the immortal palace tier. Ling Han went out, and made some inquiries to find out which mystery realm would allow him to use the regulations of time to construct the mystery realms of the immortal palace tier. However, progress was extraordinarily rough. If he wanted to construct the mystery realm with regulations of fire, he could go to the Burning Mountain, Demonic Flames Valley, and the like. If he wanted to break through with regulations of lightning, he could go to the Divine Lightning Lake, Mad Cloud Swamp, and so on. But the regulations of time were the strongest regulations in the world, and could be invincible before Celestial King tier. It was not a problem of having few of this kind of mystery realm, but rather they did not exist at all. How stupid. Since I said that the mystery realms should be formed through the regulations of time, I naturally know this place, and you actually do not ask me. How dumb, Small Tower suddenly spoke up after Ling Han's multiple failed inquiries. Ling Han couldn't help but curse, and exclaimed, "Would you have died if you had spoken earlier? Furthermore, since you said I should break through with the regulations of time, why did you not tell me the location at the same time? What would be about that then, right?" Small Tower countered very shamelessly. "All right. I won't drop myself to your level. Now tell me, where is that mystery realm?" Ling Han asked. "Under normal circumstances, you would never be able to find it for your whole life," Small Tower said. "Time is the most mysterious regulation, and the heaven and earth would not permit anyone to touch it. Only celestial medicines can draw on this regulations, and be ingested by humans for comprehension. Then how can I enter into abnormal circumstances?" Ling Han asked smilingly. "You would need to concoct an alchemical pill that allows your soul to transmigrate through time, and only then would you be able to enter into that mystery realm," Small Tower replied. Ling Han was curious, and asked, "It would be my spirit entering, but I am supposed to form my mystery realm inside my body. Would that be of any use?" "Of course," Small Tower scoffed, appearing disdainful. "What you need is only the regulations, and regulations are formless. What does it have to do with your physical body? There was such a way too." "Then what is the alchemical pill?" Ling Han asked. "You are not qualified to concoct it yet, because that needs an 8th refinement," Small Tower replied. 8th refinement. 9th refinement was the limit of spirit refinement, and only a 5-star Grandmaster could achieve that, and this alchemical pill actually needed 8th refinement to be effective. The requirements could be considered extraordinarily high. I am presently at 7th refinement, and 8th refinement. How long would that take? Ling Han couldn't be sure, either. Grandmaster Zi Cheng could also be considered an extraordinary prodigy of alchemy, But even over tens of billions of years, he still had not attained 8th refinement. Then, I will try to achieve 8th refinement first. Ling Han entered into the Black Tower, and began burying himself in alchemy. In any case, there was a channel of business for all the alchemical pills he produced, so he could get new medicinal ingredients for another round of concoction, forming a positive cycle. It could not be denied that Liu Jun, having been accepted as a disciple in the Saintly Origin Academy, was indeed quite strong in alchemy. At least, in the concoction of 3-star alchemical pills, his success rate was as high as 50%, and that was with the basis of 4th refinement, which was extremely shocking. However, because of this, he had received a lot of criticism from Ling Han. Too stupid. Only a 50% success rate, you wasteful idiot. Ling Han couldn't help but kick him a few times again. Look here, the water and moon pill is concocted like this. Liu Jun was naturally defiant. He was indeed no match for Ling Han in battle, but in terms of alchemy, Ling Han was far from being a match for him, either. And he actually said that his 50% success rate was too low? Fuck, if even that was considered wasteful, what wouldn't be considered wasteful? 50% success rate, added with 4th refinement, what did that signify? With the money for one portion of ingredients, he could earn 30 times the profit. But as he saw how Ling Han proficiently started the fire and opened the cauldron, Liu Jun was immediately stunned. This bringer of calamity was actually an alchemist as well? Fuck. The more he watched, the more shocked he was. That was because Ling Han was actually really concocting the water and moon pill. This was a 3-star alchemical pill. These movements. Too proficient, too amazing, even he could not help but want to imitate his movements. Time passed unknowingly, and Ling Han smacked the cauldron. The pill had actually been completed. Only then did realization dawn on Liu Jun. As it turned out, he had been staring at Ling Han concocting an alchemical pill, and as long as 3 months had passed without his awareness. Just how focused had he been that he would overlook such a long time having passed? Perfection level. He also forgot whether he would be hit by Ling Han again. He ran over to check on the alchemical pill that had been concocted, and was stunned yet again, looking at Ling Han with a practically reverent gaze. You are too awesome, aren't you? Ling Han gave him another kick. Don't be a hindrance here. He then began spirit refinement. 1st refinement, 2nd refinement, 3rd refinement, 7th refinement. Liu Jun's eyes were wide and bulging. This scene was really too full of impact. 7th refinement, he actually could achieve 7th refinement. When he knew Ling Han was a 3-star alchemist, he was already numb with shock, but Ling Han could actually achieve 7th refinement. What did that mean? He was a 4-star grandmaster. Brother. Chapter 2216, 1000-Year Dream Pill. Chapter 2216, 1000-Year Dream Pill. Liu Jun almost fell to his knees. Even if Ling Han was a prodigy 10,000 times more freakish than Ji Wuming, Liu Jun would only shrug and say how awesome, and that was it. Yet now he wanted to worship Ling Han, and revere him as a god. Too strong. There was actually such an alchemy prodigy that overwhelmed him not just by a large amount, but was even completely qualified to become his master. He was an alchemy prodigy, and thus only even stronger alchemy prodigies could make him submit. Han, young Master Han, he looked up at Ling Han, his eyes filled with admiration. What young master? Go and concoct more alchemical pills. If you still can't raise your success rate to 60% after I break through to 8th refinement, I'll beat you up. Ling Han glared at him. I'll definitely try my best. Liu Jun declared, clapping his chest, the respect in his eyes even more intense. 8th refinement. He was only at 4th refinement, and Ling Han was already beginning to break through to 8th refinement. A step further from 8th refinement would mean that Ling Han would advance to become a 5-star alchemist. Even in the Western celestial realm, there were not many 5-star alchemists. He was suddenly very motivated, and even had the idea of wanting to follow Ling Han's lead. This kind of prodigy was really too rare. If he could follow him, not only would it be an honor, he would also gain innumerable benefits. Ling Han did not take it to heart. He also walked to the sidelines and began his own pill concoction. Spirit refinement was unrelated to the grade of alchemical pill, so Ling Han chose a 1-star alchemical pill and then proceeded to execute spirit refinement. It could be predicted that 8th refinement would result in failure after failure after failure. There would definitely be an innumerable amount of alchemical pills that would go to waste. Thus, wouldn't using higher-grade alchemical pills for spirit refinement be a great waste? Ling Han worked hard inside the Black Tower, and occasionally would come out as well, handling the alchemical pills that Liu Jun had concocted over to the Empress and the others so that they could take them to the pharmacy for sale in exchange for some monetary wealth. This was actually not enough for his extravagance, because his rate of spirit refinement was really too fast. Even if only 1-star alchemical pills were wasted, it couldn't hold up with his kind of speed. It could be imagined just how difficult it was to achieve 8th refinement, or even become a 5-star alchemist, when even a 4-star grandmaster, a 7th refinement elite like himself would cause so much expenditure. Sometimes, it was not natural talent that was inadequate, but rather being embarrassingly short of money, and even great celestial king tier forces could not put up with such waste. Thankfully, Ling Han had robbed Liu Jun of all his wealth previously, and added with his own considerable savings, it just barely managed to support his extravagance. If he really didn't have money, he would also concoct some 4-star alchemical pills to relieve some of the pressure. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed in the outside world. Liu Jun had already advanced successfully into 5th refinement with Ling Han's guidance, and had also successfully become a 4-star grandmaster himself. In terms of time in the Black Tower, 1 million years had already passed, long exceeding the slavery period that Liu Jun had signed in his contract, but now that this guy had tasted the fruits of success, he made absolutely no mention of leaving, and merely concocted alchemical pills in silence. He could tell now. Ling Han had absolutely no thought of keeping his secrets to himself. As long as he seriously concocted alchemical pills, the former would give him some guidance. It was not that Ling Han treasured his talent, but rather treasured profit, and wanted to earn more. Liu Jun did not have the slightest disagreement about this. He, too, wanted to help Ling Han earn more, because this meant that his strength in alchemy would continue to improve. And after this 1 million years, Ling Han had finally touched the threshold of 8th refinement. How difficult. 1 million years have already passed, and I have just barely touched the threshold. Ling Han was very rueful. If these words were heard by Grandmaster Zi Cheng, he would definitely slap Ling Han's face. It should be known how many years Grandmaster Zi Cheng had been living for, and how long he had stagnated on the level of 7th refinement. Just how many millions and millions of years was that? It was more than hundreds of millions of years, yet still there was no sign of breakthrough at all. You just spent 1 million years, and you were complaining? Furthermore, this was time inside the Black Tower. In the outside world, only 10 years had passed. 10 years. I have the confidence I will be able to succeed within 10 times. Ling Han's eyes shone brightly, filled with confidence. He continued to concoct alchemical pills once, twice, thrice, and by the 7th time, the alchemical pill in his hand did not explode, but instead the 8-fold golden veined pattern appeared. 8th refinement. Success. Ling Han faltered at first, and then burst out laughing. 1 million years, just how long a period of time was that? He did not stop, but rather continued into spirit refinement, consolidating his strength. At the beginning, his success rate was naturally low, less than 10%, but it was soon raised to 20%, 30%, 50%, 70%, 90%. Yet still he could not attain 100% success rate, as if there was a mysterious power influencing his success rate in the heaven and earth, forbidding him from being so heaven-defying. Even the moon has its phases, and some things in the world cannot be perfect. Is that the logic? Ling Han mumbled to himself. 90% was quite sufficient. Small tower, the pill formula of that alchemical pill? Ling Han asked. Thankfully, Small Tower knew this pill recipe. Otherwise, if he had to go to some ancient site and try his luck, Ling Han would definitely go crazy. He began pill concoction. This was a 4-star alchemical pill, and the concoction process was extremely complicated. Even Ling Han was slightly dazed at the beginning, and after failing for at least a dozen times, he finally found some ideas, gained some experience, and then progressed slowly. Another several thousand years passed, and Ling Han had finally successfully concocted the first cauldron of alchemical pills. This is the 1,000-year dream pill, and it has never been seen on any alchemy scroll, Ling Han mumbled to himself, while his hand bore a radiant and vibrantly colorful pill that developed into the changes of age. It must reach perfection grade, and added with 8th refinement, to be able to open the corridor of time, send your soul inside the blending point of past, present, and future. That is where the time mystery realm is located, Small Tower said. Ling Han nodded, and continued concocting alchemical pills. Fortunately, not only was he a 4-star Grandmaster, he was also the Alchemy Emperor at that. After succeeding once, he would not fail any further. After every pill completion, the quality of the alchemical pill would be greatly improved. 1,000 years had passed, and the 1,000-year dream pill he had concocted finally reached perfect grade. He began spirit refinement. That was much easier to do. His success rate of 90% allowed him to concoct 5,000-year dream pills after failing once. One was for himself, one for the Empress, one for Hu Niu, one for the Rain Emperor, and the last was for bewitching Maiden Ru. She, too, was about to break through to the immortal palace tier. If she could construct 11 mystery realms, bewitching Maiden Ru might not be able to become a monarch tier, but it would definitely shrink down the distance she had separating her from a monarch tier. Coincidentally, the Rain Emperor had also cultivated dividing soul tier to consummate level, and could break through to the immortal palace tier. The 5 of them entered into the Black Tower. When breaking through to the immortal palace tier, it was naturally the safest to do so in the Black Tower. Otherwise, even if they stayed in their abode, it could still be destroyed. After one such experience, Ling Han naturally did not want to take any more risks. Speaking of Hong Huang, all 5 of them were extremely furious and frustrated. When they broke through to the immortal palace tier, they would definitely beat up this bastard. The 5 of them simultaneously took out a 1,000-year dream pill, and then swallowed it. In only a short while, the alchemical pill took effect. This was a 4-star alchemical pill, and had great power. Without the slightest trouble, it swept all 5 of their spirits out of their minds. Then, with a tremble, they began to speed up in flight. With a thought from Ling Han, Xiao, the Black Tower opened slightly, and their spirits flew out. In the space inside the Black Tower, there was no way for them to transmigrate through the flow of time. Yi! When their spirits appeared, a few mighty figures in the academy immediately exclaimed in surprise. The flow of time had been disturbed. Chapter 2217, Time Stream. Chapter 2217, Time Stream. Time was the most mysterious power. Time could not be reversed. Even the most powerful person would not dare to trace back time, and attempt to reverse the past, affecting the present, and destabilizing the future. Yet now, the powerful figures discovered that someone had actually entered into the time stream, and was actually going against the flow. They were all stunned, and then extended their divine sense to execute a search in the time stream. So, it is the spirits that have entered into the time stream. The effects of the 1,000-year dream pill. The past cannot be changed, as it would affect the present and the future. However, the 1,000-year dream pill has actually appeared again. This is a forbidden pill recipe. The heavens forbids it from appearing as it would incur jealousy from the heavens. It was lost long ago. The 5 of them. Have they gained the fortune of the heaven and earth? The powerful figures communicated with their divine senses for a while, and then withdrew their gazes. Even if they were all 9th heaven celestial kings, they could not go against the time stream. This was a taboo of heaven and earth, and even they could not accomplish that. Ling Han and his group went against the flow of the time stream. They saw the development of the universe and stars, but not very clearly. Everything flashed by too fast. However, their speed was still increasing, getting faster and faster, such that they couldn't even see any kind of scene, only the time endlessly falling back. When their speed had reached the pinnacle, past, present, and future had lost all meaning, and speed itself was also meaningless. They They suddenly shifted from extreme speed to absolute stasis. Everything around them had become grotesque and variegated, filled with bright colors, yet impossible to describe at all. Was this the time mystery realm? As per what Small Tower had said, Linghan began taking steps and walking. At present, he was only a spirit, and there was no such thing as form. He could manifest into any kind of form or shape he wished, but he had still taken his own form. Not only he, the Empress, bewitching Maiden Ru, and the Rain Emperor were all in their own forms, yet they all looked like masses of light, with a kind of vagueness about them. Hunyo was different. In one instant, she had become a drifting cloud, and in the next she had become a pig, a dog, and then would turn into Linghan's form. She was having a lot of fun. They opened their mouths to speak, and it was direct communication through divine sense. No matter how far they were from each other, they could communicate their intent to another person instantly. Continue onwards, Linghan said. They walked, and only after a while, a raging great river appeared ahead of them. The river water was extremely strange. There were actually suns, moons, and stars floating in the water, and change of time was flowing. The time stream. They were all shocked. At first, the time stream was only a kind of analogy, but they did not think that there really was such an existence, now unfolding in front of their eyes. Don't touch it, Linghan warned. Time cannot be reversed. We are in spirit form and cannot disturb time, but even with the slightest touch, we will be assimilated by time, and will never be able to return to our physical bodies. These words had been spoken by Small Tower very seriously. The Rain Emperor and the others all nodded their heads. Even if Hunyo was slightly reluctant, she still expressed agreement with a pout. They went upstream of the time stream. In the river water, they could see events that had happened endless eons ago. However, they could not really decipher most of the events. The scenes were too scattered and fragmented, and there was not much use in doing so, either. What I want to know is how the karmic life Heavenly Venerable died. Additionally, the breakout of the storm of darkness 8 epochs ago. The time stream was organized in sequence. The closer they were to the source, the longer ago the events would have happened. The 5 of them traced the ages. Boom, all of a sudden, a wave emerged, surging towards the 5 of them. Step aside. Linghan quickly moved, grabbing the 3 women simultaneously, and then rapidly retreated. The Rain Emperor's reaction speed was not slow at all, and he practically moved at the same time that Linghan did. If you are even touched by the water of the time stream, an instant would be eternity. You would be lost in eternal time. This was the most mysterious and noblest power of the heaven and earth. Time could be traced back, but definitely could not be touched, as it would affect the present and change the future. 1 epoch. 2 epochs. 3 epochs. It was unknown how long they had walked for. In this passage of time, time itself was meaningless. There was no past or future here, only present. No matter where Linghan and his group walked to, that would be the present. 8 epochs ago. They had finally walked to a crucial point, but they immediately looked disappointed. This stretch of the time stream was actually completely blurred, like water that had been disturbed. Why can't it be seen? Hunyo asked curiously. Could it be that this period of history is too important, so the heaven and earth do not permit watching? Linghan guessed. As it implicated a heavenly venerate, it was naturally very important. Let's go. Perhaps we can see more clues ahead. They continued onwards, walking on the banks of the time stream. In the time stream, they saw a great many powerful figures that would shake the world in the future one, like the 9 Lights ancient Buddha and the Imperial Void Celestial King, which helped Linghan to finally gain a further understanding of these mighty figures. Thus, they traced back endlessly like this, but there would be occasional lapses in time, burying some major events deeply. 10 epochs, 50 epochs, 100 epochs. The celestial realm was chillingly old. They had walked past 100 epochs, and still they had not reached the end. The time stream was still flowing vigorously. However, there were lapses of time everywhere, hiding who knew how many truths. 140 epochs. They had finally arrived at the end of the time stream. A grassy plain appeared ahead of them. There were blades of grass growing, but upon closer look, the grass would be wilting soon. Some grass seeds had fallen, and very soon new grass would be sprouting and growing, the cycle repeating itself. At first, Ling Han was unconcerned, but he was then stunned. The green grass was actually all celestial medicines. Just how long could celestial medicines be alive? If it was a celestial king-tier great herb, even it living a whole epoch would not be anything strange. But in this place, as far as the eye could see, these celestial medicines had only lived a mere several breaths from birth to wilting. Just what kind of frightening flow of time was this? If we enter, would we also instantly age? The Empress could tell this, her heart wary. No. Ling Han shook his head. We have ingested the 1,000-year dream pill, and while the medicinal effects are active, there is no way anything will happen to us. They advanced, passing the time stream, and entering that grassy plain. As expected, they were protected by a mysterious power, and were not corroded by the power of time. The grassy plain was astonishingly huge. They walked, and quietly kept account of the time. Perhaps over 100 years had passed, but the grassy plain was still that same grassy plain. Turning their heads, they could see that the edge of the grassy plain was actually right behind them. In other words, they had walked for over 100 years, but in truth, they hadn't progressed the slightest bit forwards. In this place, time was a mess, coexisting with chaos and order. Wang. A terrifying power surged out, and a strong chill rose up in Ling Han and his group at the same time. It was as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Even their souls were instantly frozen. In the skies, an eye appeared. The bizarre thing was that this was just a slitted eye, with the white of the eye golden, while the pupil was silver. Indescribable seals flickered, as if it was interpreting the secrets of time. This slitted eye swept a look over Ling Han and his group. Wang, a divine sword fell out of the eye, blooming into countless cold blades that struck out at Ling Han and his group. Even a ninth heaven celestial king could not attack in the time stream. This would reverse the past and present, and change the future. Only a heavenly venerate would not be affected by the regulations, and could do as they liked. Hiss, this was actually a move from a heavenly venerate. Chapter 22:18 Intervention of a Heavenly Venerate. Chapter 22:18 Intervention of a Heavenly Venerate. Heavens, it was a heavenly venerate that was moving. To say nothing of the fact that Ling Han and his group were only mere dividing soul tiers, even if they were ninth heaven celestial kings, what could they do? Would they be able to block this blow? What could they do? Just wait for death. In this plane, time was incredibly strange. It could be astonishingly rapid, but it could also be overwhelmingly slow, and even a heavenly venerate would be affected. When this divine sword struck out, it looked to be shockingly fast, yet still streaked a boundless distance in the skies, and it had still not fallen. In this process, the seals on the divine sword were also dimming, as if it had experienced an endless period of time, and was about to be destroyed by age. Instantly, understanding dawned on Ling Han. This heavenly venerate was not of the same time period as them. Originally, there was absolutely no way that they would have encountered each other, but who asked them to have entered into the time mystery realm, and this was what led to their encounter. Before the divine sword struck its target, it would disappear on its own because it could not overcome the power of time. However, Ling Han and his group were all astounded. Having delivered an attack that could mess up time for so long before finally disappearing, just what kind of great power was this? Heavenly Venerable Tier had transcended regulations, and it was indeed no joke. If it were not for the fact that the Heavenly Venerate could not surpass heaven and earth, the might of this strike would have been even stronger, being capable of ignoring time, and ultimately killing them. Yet why had this Heavenly Venerate made a move on them without any notice? In the skies, that soul eye narrowed slightly, a bloody scar appearing in the silvery white of the eye, yet it was silvery blood that dripped out. Even if a Heavenly Venerate could move, being contrary to time, he ultimately would have to suffer a penalty from the heaven and earth. There were some rules that even a Heavenly Venerate could not exceed, or he would still have to suffer a lashback. However, Heavenly Venerable Tier was too strong, so even the heaven and earth could not do anything to them. Otherwise, if it had been another person, even if it was a ninth heaven celestial king, they would probably have been completely eradicated. I have seen your vague figures downstream of the time stream, and I cannot allow you to live. This slit eye sent out a blurry message. It was really too far off, so the sound was vague and unclear. It should be that this heavenly venerate just happened to enter into the time stream at some point in history, and caught sight of Ling Han and his group passing by. Then, he used a great mystical power, saw some aspects of their future, and thought that it was possible that they would affect himself in the future. Thus, even if it meant moving contrary to time, using the past to kill the present, and even if he would suffer a backlash from heaven and earth, he still did it. Ling Han laughed loudly. This meant that there was definitely one among them that had become a heavenly venerate, and only would this incite wariness from a heavenly venerate. Otherwise, even if they had all become ninth heaven celestial kings, so what? They wouldn't even be worth a mention. However, this heavenly venerate was really petty. Could it be that he could not allow others to be his equal? Moreover, since this heavenly venerate had discovered the threat their group posed in history, why had he not moved in the present flow of time? Could it be that he had long since died? Impossible. If he had already died, then he would not have considered their group a threat. Could it be that this heavenly venerable tier had moved despite the order of time, and had thus suffered a lashback from the heaven and earth? Then, after leaving, he would no longer keep this memory. Otherwise, it could not be explained. So what if time separates us? So what if I will have to endure the backlash of karma? If I want to kill someone, even the heavens cannot stop me. The slit eye sent out his divine sense. Boom, he exploded with an even more powerful aura, as if the heaven and earth itself would have to prostrate in front of him. Wong, the slit eye sent out a paw this time. It was black as ink, and pressed down on Ling Han and his group. This paw was entwined with boundless seals, and as it struck out, even this mystery realm that did not exist in the heaven and earth would tremble on the verge of collapse. Compared to the previous divine sword, the might of this attack had soared 100 times over. Boom, the black paw struck over, its speed extraordinarily fast. Even boundless time could not stop its might. Ling Han and his group wanted to flee, but no matter how fast their feet ran, their figures were completely motionless. In this heaven and earth, the flow of time was incredibly bizarre. Could it be that they would be dying here? Ling Han's heart was icy cold. To say nothing of the fact that they were only in spirit form now, even if they had physical bodies, and could hide inside the Black Tower, so what? When a heavenly venerate moved, even the Tower of Three Realms could only flee. If it dared to stand off against the heavenly venerate, it would definitely be destroyed. But was there really no solution? Sure, right at this moment, a dim light streaked out, striking that paw, and forcibly sending it into retreat. Who had moved now that had actually blocked the strike of a heavenly venerate? The slit eye blinked slightly, and looked behind Ling Han and his group. Looking downstream of the time stream, that dim light had come from downstream. So it is you. The slitted eye released a cold laugh. I have seen you in the time stream, and after boundless years, you are no longer in existence. Ling Han and his group were all numb from hearing this. To be able to move in spite of time, that would have to be a heavenly venerate, but would a heavenly venerate die? Ling Han suddenly understood which heavenly venerate would move at this moment, and would also have disappeared in history. The karmic life heavenly venerable. The master he had never met. The five of them all looked downstream of the time stream, and saw a figure was striding over, feet stepping on the river waters. A black tower floated above his head, and there would be occasional streaks of golden light surging out, exuding an aura that would suppress the heavens and shake the ages. It was the Tower of Three Realms. Ling Han naturally recognized it, and was completely sure that this was the karmic life heavenly venerable. The karmic life heavenly venerable had entered here from a different shard of time, and discovered Ling Han. He had also discovered that he was his future disciple, and had thus moved resolutely when he had encountered danger. As it turned out, this little guy is your disciple from a different era. The slit eye looked into the distance of the time stream, and showed an expression of dawning realization. I really cannot afford to underestimate your line. To think that two heavenly venerates would actually emerge. However, the future is not unchangeable. As long as I kill him here, then even the future would also be rewritten. Just try. The karmic life Heavenly Venerable had already walked to the source of the time stream, and stood ahead of Ling Han. His tall, broad figure stood in front of Ling Han and his group, protecting them completely. He looked at the skies proudly. Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate, do you dare battle me? See if I won't kill you, and turn you into history. How domineering, being so confident even faced with a Heavenly Venerate. Ling Han stuck out his head slightly, surveying the karmic life Heavenly Venerable. He was an extremely handsome man, broad and tall in figure. He had thick black hair, each strand seemingly carved from beautiful jade, exuding a gentle luster. His face was also seemingly carved from jade, with clear-cut features and a smooth, bright complexion. The most astonishing was naturally his aura of dominating the whole world, recognizing no one else but himself. The slitted eye stared at the karmic life Heavenly Venerable for a while, and then involuntarily smirked coldly. You are already a dead man, so what need do I have to risk severe injury just to battle you? Moreover, if it actually stirs up time, who knows how it may change history, and it is possible that you may be granted a sliver of hope of survival. Hehe, do you think I would be so stupid? Cowardly rat. Karmic life Heavenly Venerable merely mocked coldly. The slitted eye involuntarily widened slightly, and said, however, you are right. I am determined to kill these juniors. Their future is filled with fog, and even I cannot distinguish it clearly. Without eradicating them, I would not be able to rest easy. He had no interest in battling the karmic life Heavenly Venerable, yet wanted to kill Ling Han and his group. Was it difficult? Not at all. If a Heavenly Venerate wanted to kill someone, then even another Heavenly Venerate would find it very difficult to protect them. Chapter 22:19 Important Decision. Chapter 22:19 Important Decision. The karmic life Heavenly Venerable laughed loudly. Jiuwu, just how many epochs has it been since you became a Heavenly Venerate? And you are actually afraid of a few juniors. Humph, so what? The slit-eye scoffed. As long as they can possibly pose a threat to me, I will erase all of them. Too bad that memories would also be erased after leaving here. Otherwise, you could not possibly have become a Heavenly Venerate, either. Hearing this, realization dawned on Ling Han and his group. As it turned out, this Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate was even attempting to kill the karmic life Heavenly Venerable in the time stream, but at the time, he had not succeeded, and once he left his place, all the relevant memories would disappear. Even a Heavenly Venerate would not be exempted. Otherwise, even if the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had heaven-defying good luck, he could not have possibly avoided being hunted down by a Heavenly Venerate in real time. Only after returning to this place would the memories that had disappeared recover, and Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate would recall that he had previously attempted to erase the younger karmic life Heavenly Venerable from history, changing his destiny. But the stronger a mighty figure was, the harder it was to change because there were too many implications. With this kind of power of heaven and earth and lashback from karma, even a Heavenly Venerate would find it very difficult to succeed. For example, Jiuwu Heavenly Venerate now wanted to kill Ling Han and his group, yet it just so happened that the karmic life Heavenly Venerable came out to rescue them. This was a kind of power from karma. There is no absolutely determined future, so even if I wish to go against the will of heaven, what of it? The slit eye trembled, and actually walked out of the distance, becoming a giant that was millions and millions of meters tall. He donned bright yellow robes, wearing a black imperial crown. There was only a single slit eye on his forehead, exuding divine light, as if it could see through the past and future. He was standing right there, yet seemed like he did not exist at all, which was extremely mysterious. With me here, you cannot kill anyone, karmic life Heavenly Venerable declared proudly, and then shouted at Ling Han and his group, hurry up with your real business here. Though Ling Han and his group very much wanted to watch the great battle of Heavenly Venerates, they also knew the danger of that. Only a shock wave from a single attack of a Heavenly Venerable tier would be able to kill them 10,000 times over. If they insisted on watching the battle, it would be equivalent to committing suicide. I'll send you off. The karmic life heavenly venerable moved, and a great power surged out. Instantly, the 5 of them were thrown out. They could see grass flying beneath their feet, and traveled a boundless distance in an instant. Jiuwu heavenly venerate moved, wanting to stop Ling Han and his group. He had absolutely no intentions to exchange blows with the karmic life heavenly venerable. The latter had already died in history, yet he himself had lived till the present and future. If he battled with the karmic life heavenly venerable, it was possible that he would be severely injured or even die. What was the point, then? The karmic life heavenly venerable laughed, and with a wave of his hands, Ling Han and his group sped up further. Then, he turned his head, and faced Jiuwu heavenly venerate directly. Going against the era, it is destined that you cannot possibly succeed, he said. Jiuwu heavenly venerate smirked coldly. In front of me, there is nothing impossible. Even if there is great karma from the heaven and earth, so what? I have already surpassed regulations, and even the heaven and earth can do nothing against me. He moved aggressively, wanting to blast the karmic life heavenly venerable aside so he could hunt down Ling Han and his group. The karmic life heavenly venerable also had no intention of battling him to the death. Though he had seen how he would be dying in the future, he presently had endless attachments that he could not let go of, so how could he possibly risk dying to battle the Jiuwu heavenly venerate to the death? For those that had reached heights that they had, who was not the most outstanding prodigy of an era, so who would be weaker than the other? Since it was a matter of the future, it should be left to be resolved in the future. The goal of the karmic life heavenly venerable was very simple, and that was to save the lives of Ling Han and his group. The 2 great heavenly venerates battled fiercely. Even the slightest movement would produce an incredibly mighty power easily capable of killing a 9th heaven celestial king. Thankfully, Ling Han and his group had already been sent far away enough by the karmic life heavenly venerable. Otherwise, even if they were in a place with such chaotic time like this, the attack of a heavenly venerate would still be able to penetrate time, and land a lethal blow on them. When the heavenly venerate power on them was fully expended, they stopped automatically. They saw that they had crossed over the grassy plain, and multiple crystalline pillars lay ahead of them. These pillars reflected their figures, yet their reflections moved differently. Some were going around in circles, some were seated in cultivation, and some were scratching their heads madly. Is this an illusion? Bewitching Maiden Ru asked. Ling Han thought, and then shook his head. Since this is the time mystery realm, time itself is chaotic here. Perhaps what we see is a certain fragment of the future. Both the Empress and the Rain Emperor nodded. It should be this place. Ling Han surveyed the surroundings. According to what Small Tower had said, this was the end of the time mystery realm, and plucking the power of time here would grant a chance of building a mystery realm of the human body, and advancing into the immortal palace tier. The 5 of them each found a position, and then sat down cross-legged, beginning to break through to immortal palace tier. This was similar to a scene that had appeared in the crystal pillars. Clearly, this place had already recorded a fragment of their future. The mystical power of time was indeed extraordinary. Ling Han's heart soared, making contact with the mystical power of time around him. There was the past, present, and future. Time had taken the form of shards, which was incredibly amazing. After so many years of settling, Ling Han had long since been equipped with the qualifications to break through to the immortal palace tier. Thus, when the mystical power of time came, strong enlightenment immediately rose up in his heart. Correspondingly, some mysterious change had also taken place in his body inside the Black Tower. It was exuding a brilliant light, dazzling and eye-catching. Ling Han hesitated slightly about which of the 5 organs he should cultivate. Heart first, then. He soon came to a decision. The heart was the leader of all 6 organs. When the heart was clear, so was the spirit. However, before breaking through to the immortal palace tier, there was one more thing he had to do. And that was to take all the divided souls back into his body. 4 ordinary dividing soul tiers, that was 4 souls returning to 1, but for Ling Han, it was 9 divided souls combined into 1. Sensing that they were about to be fused again, the 9 divided souls all expressed defiance. They were not Ling Han's souls, but rather the 9 source powers of heaven and earth. Previously, they had existed in the form of a divided soul, which was equivalent to them having been granted an independent life. And now that Ling Han was about to take them back into his body, it would be equivalent to erasing their independence. They were naturally dissatisfied with this. However, they were a part of Ling Han that had been split off, and Ling Han was their master. There was no way that they could resist. Ling Han paused slightly. Then, gritting his teeth, he decided not to fuse the 9 source powers of heaven and earth. He already had the imprint of the source powers of heaven and earth in his body. Thus, even if he released the 9 source powers, it would not affect his future comprehension. However, his strength would definitely be greatly affected. For example, he definitely would no longer be able to use Great Clash of source powers. But once Ling Han's decision was made, he did not hesitate any further. He had always believed firmly in his own strength. No matter how strong external factors were, there would ultimately be a limit, while his own strength was what truly had no limits. The 9 source powers had already given him extremely great help, so granting them freedom would also be showing Thim respect and gratitude. That was the case. Ling Han's body in the Black Tower trembled, and the 9 divided souls all fell out of his body. He did not want any external objects, and wanted to advance into Immortal Palace tier with the purest self, breaking through to become the strongest. The 9 divided souls all expressed gratitude towards him. Throughout the ages, who could be so domineering and confident in themselves? Ling Han extracted the mystical power of time, and began to temper his heart so he could construct the first mystery realm of his body. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,